This is a steal for the Steelers as they are looking to acquire their number 2 wide receiver. My name is Peyton Kleppe, and on today's episode of Steelers Digest, we'll be breaking down how the Steelers could acquire their second receiver from the 49ers. Before we get into the latest news and reports regarding the Pittsburgh Steelers, if you guys are not already currently subscribed to the channel, just click that subscribe button down below. We are trying to get to 3,000 subscribers. Like I said, the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking to add another wide receiver to their team, and the next guy that they have been linked to is Jauan Jennings, a guy who has emerged as a top receiver on the San Francisco 49ers. You know, he's a guy that he does want to get paid, and the Niners have shown in the past that they're not really willing to pay their wide receivers. They paid Brandon Ayuk, but obviously they paid the price for that. Ayuk tore his ACL early in the season last year, and they did trade away Deebo Samuel to the Washington Commanders this offseason. So like I just said, months after dealing Deebo Samuel to the Washington Commanders, San Francisco 49ers are faced with another wide receiver dilemma. Unless he can secure a new contract from the 49ers ahead of training camp, veteran pass catcher Jauan Jennings intends to formally request a trade from the Niners, as ESPN reported Monday. You know, Jennings is 28 years old, but he did record last year 77 catches for over 900 yards and 6 touchdowns. This was in Samuel's place. Deebo did get hurt last year, really did not see the field a lot, so Jennings took advantage of his opportunities, and he was able to, put together a pretty solid season, only 30 yards from 1,000 yards, and he's due $7.5 million in 2025 on the final year of his current deal. Per over the cap, and while he isn't expected to hold out of camp, without a new deal, he plans to seek a trade from a team, from the 49ers, and he's willing to go for a team that's going to pay him. And this is obviously if San Fran can't find common ground with him. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, as you guys and I know, we do need that wide receiver 2 position, and bringing in a veteran guy like Jauan Jennings could be the best move at the moment for the Pittsburgh Steelers if we are willing to pay him. We have shown earlier on this season, this offseason, that we are willing to trade for guys and we are willing to pay him. The only guy who we still haven't paid is TJ Watt. We will have to see what the Pittsburgh Steelers do with that, whether they do intend to trade him, whether they do intend to lock him down. I think right now there's a little discrepancy with the long-term, contract. I think TJ wants more years on the deal to just show that he wants to finish his career in Pittsburgh, but the Steelers are not willing to give that to him. I think this might be a situation like Troy Polamalu in 2014 where, TJ knows, or he thinks that he can play another 4 to 5 years, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are thinking, hey, this guy's probably only got like 3 more good years left in him, 4 max, so that may be why the Pittsburgh Steelers are hesitant to give him that long-term deal. But back to Jauan Jennings. San Fran's front office faces a difficult decision with Jennings entering the final year of his 2-year, $15.4 million contract. He is demanding a new deal or a trade. And, with the Niners cap situation that did hurt because of the Brock Purdy, extension with George Kittle getting paid and Fred Warner, they really don't have too much cap space to, pay a guy like Jauan Jennings. So the Pittsburgh Steelers could swoop in there, send over a few picks that we have accumulated this offseason, and, get Jennings alongside our physical number 1 wide receiver in DK Metcalf. So if we do look at the stats, though, of Jauan Jennings the past 4 years, he has been in the league. His rookie year had some pretty pedestrian numbers, only had 24 receptions for over 200 yards, but he did have 5 touchdowns. 2022, 35 receiving receptions, 416 yards, and only 1 touchdown. But all these numbers were behind guys like Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, who they probably were in the primes of their career at the time. It looks like they're probably both on the downslope at the moment, with the Commanders acquiring Deebo for only a 6th-round pick, and Brandon Ayuk continuing to get hurt and run his mouth off the field. But anyways, back to the stats. In 2023, Jennings had 19 receptions for only 265 yards and a touchdown. And then last year, he did have his breakout year with that 77 receptions, over 900 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So Some people may think that, going for a guy like Jennings is a risk, but the Pittsburgh Steelers really do need a wide receiver number 2. And, Jennings is a guy that could slide in pretty well at that wide receiver 2 position. He's also a pretty physical guy like DK Metcalf. I believe he's like 6'3". Dude's pretty fast. He's used to the slot too. When he was earlier in his career, he was playing that wide receiver 3 position. So, you can move this guy around, play him on the outside, also play him in the slot. But he's not afraid to make that aggressive catch. He's a big dude, and I think he also could bring some veteran leadership to kind of help these young guys out. In guys like Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin, both those guys are probably going to play in that slot receiver position, catch the balls over the middle. But we will have to wait and see. There's also names like Gabe Davis that have been leaked that, the Pittsburgh Steelers have reportedly still been talking to and still in contact with after his workout. So if the Pittsburgh Steelers decide that, hey, we don't want to get Jennings, or the 49ers think, hey, let's just pay this dude, let's get him to shut his mouth and, just keep playing for us, the Pittsburgh Steelers could make a different decision and maybe sign a guy like Gabe Davis. And there's also another name that is still on the trade market at the moment who's still waiting to get paid by his team. This guy's been Mr. Consistent. He's been great for his team, but, they're not willing to pay him. And that's really been the story of this offseason. A lot of big teams is not paying the guys that they're worth it. And the guy I'm talking about is Scary Terry McLaurin. Mr. Consistent coming out of Ohio State. Dude has had 1,000 yards every year since coming into the league. He's had to play with a ton of bad quarterbacks. Taylor Heineke, Josh Johnson. Who else? All the random Sam Howell. There's a ton of different guys Case Keenum, I think. There's a ton of different guys that was in that Commanders uniform. And, Scary Terry has shown that he can play with all of them. So, if the Pittsburgh Steelers do not get Jauan Jennings in a trade, they could look to do a little pivot and pick up a guy like Scary Terry McLaurin. But, if we do add a guy like Jauan Jennings, I think he's going to be very nice. I think he's going to really help out our quarterback, our veteran Super Bowl champion quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. Just give him another weapon to throw to. We really have shown this offseason that we're all in and we're willing to acquire a ton of weapons for Aaron Rodgers, picking up a guy like Jonnu Smith, picking up a guy like DK Metcalf, and bringing in some great running backs in guys like Caleb Johnson and Kenneth Gainwell, who can catch the ball out of the backfield, run the ball up the middle. And we still have a guy like Jaylen Warren, who's been Mr. Reliable, Mr. Gadget guy for the Pittsburgh Steelers the past couple years. But unfortunately, that's all I have for you guys tonight on Steelers Digest. If you guys are not already currently subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below. Thank you so much. Here we go, Steelers.